Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your day, part of your week. And I was just so blessed to read these words today and hope that you are just as blessed as I am when reading these words. Today we're going to be looking at 1 Kings chapter 17. In this particular passage, we're going to be looking at a little snippet of Elijah's life. Now, Elijah was a prophet of God, and he did a lot of very dangerous things for his time, and he was living in a very difficult time of Israel's history. In this point of time, God's nation was split between two kingdoms, the northern kingdom, Israel, and the southern kingdom, Judah. Elijah's ministry took place in the northern kingdom, and took place during one of the worst kings and queens there were. This was King Ahab and his wife Jezebel. And they completely rejected God pretty much with all their practices and brought in a lot of pagan influence and pagan thought and gave Elijah a lot of trouble and suffering and pain for his work towards God and his work to help restore Israel spiritually back to where it's supposed to be. And this is just in the middle of that story. And there's a pretty bizarre thing that happens in this chapter. We're going to look at the first 6 verses. But we can learn something pretty applicable from all this. So if you would join with me today, we're going to look at 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. It reads like this. Now Elijah, the Tishbite of Tishbe in Galilee, said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word." And the word of the Lord came to him. "Depart from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook, which is east of the Jordan. You shall drink from the brook. I have commanded the ravens to feed you there." So he went and did according to what the word of the Lord. He went and lived by the brook, that is the east of the Jordan. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So a pretty crazy thing. He's speaking to the people of Israel, saying it's going to be a big drought. They're going to have a very difficult time, especially during those times, those ages. Most people were agricultural farmers and needed to farm to sustain themselves. So a famine was incredibly bad. So he's giving this awful news that there's going to be a drought. And part of that's because they are just completely rejecting God. And so God, to protect Elijah, tells him to go to the east side of the Jordan. There's going to be a brook there where he can hide out for a while. Now, if you're experiencing a famine during that time and don't really have any food and water, hiding out in the wilderness seems like a pretty bad idea and pretty good way to starve or dehydrate. But God was providing for him. God cared for Elijah, and this was his call for him, so he was going to care for him. Literally by the birds. The birds were giving Elijah food and water in the morning and the evening, and he was drinking clean water at the brook. And so we get this funny picture. Elijah's out hiding out by himself and expecting these birds to come along and help him live, bring him food. And so although it seems really weird and seems bizarre and seems like this has nothing to do with our day-to-day life or what we're going to be doing this morning, I urge you that there really is something of great importance to learn here. See, God calls all of us, like he called Elijah, to love him, to worship him, and to serve him in this world, to love our neighbor, to love our brother and sister in Christ, and to spread his kingdom in whatever unique way he's called us to. And God's calls are notoriously not easy things to be done. And sometimes for some people, it's even life-threatening, like the case of Elijah. But all we should do is show up and say yes in obedient faith. And if we seek his kingdom first, seek him first, and follow, trusting that his call is his call for our lives, and that's the best thing for us, then he will provide. God has a will, and it will be done. And if his will is to call us to do something, he will make sure we can do it. He will empower us, he will provide us with what's needed. Elijah, in this case, needed to hide out in the wilderness for a while, and that was his call. And he trusted him and was obedient and went out to where God called him, and God provided. So I urge you today, as you are living your life, as you suffer your challenges and your trials and whatever's going on that is difficult, Remember that God has called you, and if He's called you, He will provide if you trust and obey Him. Thank you for joining me today.